Subjective probability. What is subjective probability? Subjective probability is a type of probability derived from an individual's personal judgment or own experience about whether a specific outcome is likely to occur. It contains no formal calculation and only reflects the subject's opinions and past experience. An example of subjective probability is a good instinct when making a trade. Subjective probability is where you use your opinion to find probabilities. For example, first, you think you have an 80% chance of your best friend calling today because her car broke down yesterday and she'll probably need a ride. Second, you think you have a 50-50 chance of getting the job you apply for because the other applicant also very qualified. And the last, you're taking your dog to the vet today, and based on past experience, you're pretty confident you'll need over $100 for the bill. The downsides. As only personal opinions are involved, there is usually a high degree of personal bias. Another downside is that one person's opinion may differ vastly from another's. For example, you might think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to find themselves at the bottom of the language this year, while your friends, a Jag fan, may argue that they have some great new players and certainly won. A third problem that affects subjective probabilities is they must obey certain conditions in order to be workable. For example, you can think there are 75% chance of rain today, and also think that there is a 75 chance of it's not raining. Probabilities must add up to 100%. As you are performing calculation, it's easy to fall into the trap of failing to meet this condition for more complicated probabilities. How subjective probability works. Subjective probability differ from person to person and contain a high degree of personal bias. Subjective probability can be constrained with objective probability, which is the compute probability that an event will occur based on an analysis in which its measure is based on recorded observation or a long history of collected data. What is it used for? If subjective probability is so open to bias, why use it at all? We often think of probability in terms of the classical probability definition, which is the number of favorable events divided by the total number of events. However, this is one narrow case of probability and isn't subtable for all areas of the file, including Bayesian probability. A more philosophical approach is to realize that probability only have meaning to the person. Think about them. Being subjective when calculating probabilities is a way of quantifying the unknown and is a necessary part of life. The probability of an event is based on the likelihood of that event occurring. In most forms of probability, quantitative information is gathered and interpreted to help determine this likelihood through a mathematical mechanism. Normally, relating to the mathematical field of statistics. The percentage chance of a flip coin landing on heads or tails can be interpreted as probability, expressed as a 50% chance that it will land heads up and a 50 chance it will land tails up. Subjective probability, on the other hand, is highly flexible, even in terms of one individual belief. While an individual may believe the chance of a specific event occurring is 25%, they could have a different belief when given a specific range from which to choose, such as 25% to 30%. This can occur even if no additional hard data is behind the change. Subjective probability can be affected by a variety of personal beliefs held by an individual. This could relate back to upbringing as well as other events the person has witnessed throughout his life. Even if the individual belief can be rationally explained, it does not make the prediction an actual fact. It is often based on how each individual interprets the information presented to him. Other types of probability. First, empirical probability. Empirical probability refers to a probability that is based on historical data. For example, if 3 coin tosses yielded a head, the empirical probability of getting a head in a coin toss is 100%. Second, classical probability. Classical probability refers to a probability that is based on formal reasoning. For example, the classical probability of getting a head in coin toss is 50%. Subjective probability is the only type of probability that incorporates personal beliefs. Empirical and classical probabilities are objective probabilities. Pros and cons of subjective probability. Subjective probability can be useful in many situations, and it has many benefits, including requires little mathematical or historical data, good for making cases and prediction, use an individual past experience and personal opinions. However, there are some drawbacks to using subjective probability, including large amount of personal bias, no calculation involved, variation among predictions made by different people. Therefore, it's important to consider your specific situation and choose the type of probability that makes the most sense. This can help you determine the most accurate probability possible. What is the difference between cumulative and subjective probabilities? There are two types of probability: cumulative probability and subjective probability. Cumulative probability is the probability of an event over a series of trials. Subjective probability is your degree of belief in the event. The sum of subjective probability equals 100% because you are 100% sure that it will happen. It is just that you don't know when. There is always a chance of failure. So, in other words, you can be 100 sure that you will make a million within 5 years. It is just 50-50 that you will make it. Example of subjective probability. The following examples clearly state how subjective probability outcome differ for each person. Example 1. The weather department is predicting that it will rain in the next 2 hours based on wind pattern, weather situation, and their software analysis. But you may have the same prediction of rain in the next 2 hours based on your experience with weather or rain. Example 2. You have fallen sick and want to visit your family doctor. You want to predict how much money you should take while visiting a doctor. The last time when you visit him, the doctor was charging $30 as a consultation fee. Conclusion. To sum it all up, subjective probability is a type of probability based on individual knowledge, understanding, and experience of the likelihood of an event. This prediction might be true if they are bias-free and come up with some logical reasoning. But there are situations, as explained throughout this article, that demands judgment or experience rather than calculation.